Chalde.
Yeah, jaldi jaldi. Oh, not bad. Do you have Indians in your?
No, I grew up watching Bollywood. So.
At this point, do you still think that there is a path to victory for Kamala Harris? There are significant challenges.
It is the realization that we have a dictator in the making. If we were to give Trump a second presidency, it is not just democracy that is on the ballot. We also have media that really has lost its journalistic ethos, and so we have to do a lot of work.
Some of the things we heard from people who were either undecided, on the fence, were that they were aware of some of these concerns about Trump, but there was this constant thing about, we don't know Kamala Harris enough.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't know who the vice president is. Right. I don't think I've ever seen Republicans campaigning for a Democratic candidate.
Continuing support that America is giving to the war in Gaza, and which is expanding. That's surely hurting.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge blind spot.
It's election time in America. It's a high-stakes battle here, and we're in Washington, D.C. I have with me Representative Ilhan Omar. She's a Democrat. She's one of the prominent faces of the party. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. How high are the stakes, do you think, in this election? Is this one of the most important elections that America finds itself in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the realization that we have a dictator in the making. If we were to give Trump a second presidency, where our rights and liberties will be further eroded. And so it is not just democracy that is on the ballot. It is, our bodily autonomy. It is the protection of our neighbors, as he is saying he wants to do mass deportation. It's him saying he wants to use the Alien Act, which is, where that was used against the Japanese. He wants to reinstitute the Muslim ban, which matters to people like myself. He wants to get rid of policies like the student debt cancellation that I've championed, and President Biden and Vice President Harris has implemented. And so not only does everything that we care and love about this country under threat, but also the progress that we have made in the last 3.5 years look to be eroded. And so it is a very, very important election.
So to those who would argue that he was in power for 4 years, but none of those things happened, that, that American values, American Constitution largely survived that, you would say what?
I would say that people who have that view really have not paid attention, right? We had a struggle in transferring power. We saw the Muslim ban that impacted so many of us and our families abroad. We saw the bombing and the droning of Yemen. We saw what he did to Roe versus Wade and eroding women's right to choose. And we saw what he did to the institutions. And, people like myself that do constituent service, we see how hard it is, even now after 3.5 years, to get back to where we were after President Obama left. And I think it is really important for people to not dismiss, because everything didn't collapse.
Sure.
People are like, oh, it can't be that bad. He is going to make good on all of these promises, and Project 2025 is real.
Why do you think that is then, that if the stakes are so high and there's all this potential threat to America, American democracy in this election, that is still such a tight race? Yeah. I mean, that is so intriguing to those of us, especially watching from the outside, that it's so close.
Yeah, I mean, people are set in their ways. We are country-wise very divided politically, and there is a disconnect between what is real and what is not. And so there is an effort to try to make sure people, get to know Vice President Harris. People understand her policy proposals. People understand what is possible and what was possible when Democrats have the majority in the House and in the Senate. And it will always be, because we also have media that really has lost its journalistic ethos, and so we have to do a lot of work.
When we were going around talking to people, some of the things we heard from people who were either undecided, on the fence, were that they were aware of some of these concerns about Trump, but there was this constant thing about, we don't know Kamala Harris enough. She doesn't come out that often. She keeps changing her positions. What would you say to that, and what would you say to those folks? Is there any legitimacy in those concerns, or?
Yeah, I mean, most people don't know who the vice president is. Right. And so, vice presidents are essentially supposed to take a backseat until they're needed by the president. And many of the things that they're involved in are not things that the public gets to see. And so, yes, there is a chance for her to continue introducing herself, talking about what she actually cares about, the direction she wants to take the country. It is challenging when you are running as for president as a current vice president, right?
You're carrying some of that baggage.
Yes, you are carrying that, but you also can't challenge the administration that you are part of. And so there's some decorum, some respect that goes along with that. I think if the president was currently not in office, she would have a lot more space. Right. But she is fulfilling her duties as vice president while she is trying to run for president. And I think she is doing it masterfully. I think she is out there communicating with people and trying to have as many conversations as possible. It is also a very interesting campaign, right? The tent is getting wider. There are more people that are joining her on campaign rallies. I don't think I've ever seen Republicans campaigning for a Democratic candidate. And so it's been really interesting watching this journey. So
the tent is getting wider in one way, but it's also shrinking in another way, particularly a constituency that and an issue which you're very close to, which is, of course, the continuing support that America is giving to the war in Gaza, and which is expanding. That's surely hurting, right? I mean, I'm sure you must be hearing it all the time in your own district, but even in states like Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge blind spot, and one that needs attention from Vice President Harris, not just in rhetoric, but in policy proposals. And I am afraid that unless that happens, we might not be able to win with the current coalition that we have if we lose such a huge part of our coalition.
You think that could actually be a make or break thing that might make a difference between victory and defeat?
It could be. I mean, you've got states where, in the 2020 election, it was won by 11,000, like Georgia. And certainly there are a lot of Muslims, a lot of young people who this issue is a deal breaker, where they might vote for a third party candidate or not vote at all. That scares me and causes concern. You've got states like Michigan, Pennsylvania. And so, we are not, the Muslim community is not monolithic. We are not concentrated in one area. We live throughout the United States. And certainly in some of these states that can help her get the Electoral College are states where there is a huge number of us. And I am afraid enough attention is not being paid.
Why is it then you believe that if the stakes are so high that there is this continuing reluctance to do anything to actually make it difficult for Israel to continue with the campaign of bombing? I mean, I know that this letter was written and so on, but in terms of just an arms embargo, right? Because that's the supply chain.
You would assume that is our biggest leverage, that we would deploy it.
Yes.
And somehow President Biden has chose not to deploy that leverage. And I think because the VP is in the administration, she also gets to be blamed for that. And there has to be some way she wiggles herself out of this in order to give herself a chance at becoming the next president of the United States.
But why? Okay, well, but why do you think that's not happening though? What's like, because you're kind of in the system.
Yeah.
Why this reluctance to actually cut back on the arms or to do something consequential when it comes to Israel? What's the reason, you think?
I have the same question. I have called on the president to impose an arms embargo since the beginning. I do believe that there is an ongoing genocide. I do believe United States laws are being violated. I do believe that there are international laws that are being violated. You saw that in many ways. I do not understand why we do not have the moral courage.
You've not ever heard back from the establishment or the administration on why, like to the concerns raised by you and others? There's never been any.
The answers are not justifiable.
Okay, well, I'm told we're out of time, but just last question. At this point, do you still think that there is a path to victory for Kamala Harris, or do you think that there are, Gaza, of course, just one, but there are significant challenges, including, by the way, race. I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, no, there are significant challenges. The gender issue is a challenge. The race issue is a challenge. The ongoing genocide in Gaza is a challenge. The lack of enthusiasm from some of our coalition is a challenge. Pathways are created by candidates. And whatever decisions that are being made need to constantly be reassessed in order to make sure she is positioned to become the next president of our country.
Okay.
Well, that is certainly what we're all hoping for.
Okay. Well, thank you so much indeed for taking the time out to speak to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.